Okay, moving on to the next segment of today's show. I wanted to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their playoff loss on Sunday night to the Cleveland Browns. And I got to tell you, if you've been listening to this show throughout the start of the season, you know that I had some very high expectations for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. I was someone that had the belief that going into this season, their defense was good enough to lead the Steelers to a Super Bowl title. And I do think that even though they had some healthy names out there on Sunday Night Football, TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, all that, you obviously can make the argument that losing Bud Dupree and losing Devin Bush really did hurt the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I didn't even want to talk about that to open this segment in recap of the Pittsburgh Steelers loss to the Cleveland Browns. I'm just going to say it like it is. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers next year, I'm not bringing Ben Roethlisberger back because I think that if you were going to do that, you would be delaying the inevitable. You would be delaying the fact that as great of a quarterback as Ben Roethlisberger has been, and as much as he's done for Pittsburgh, and he's been very consistent throughout his career, and he's had a great career, and he's been an awesome Steeler, but this is pro football. This is the big leagues. And when I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, I evaluate their team in the sense that they would be better off for the future without bringing Big Ben back. And I'll tell you a couple reasons why. Number one, I don't understand what the person who argues is thinking when he says Big Ben back, because what exactly next year is going to change from this year? And if you want to say the coordinators, I get that Randy Fichtner and his play calling and his short yardage execution with this Pittsburgh Steelers offense was hideous. I totally understand that. And I've gone on Twitter each and every Pittsburgh Steeler game saying Randy Fichtner is an absolute disgrace. The Steelers have had many game plans in the past that have been an absolute disgrace. All you have to look at is the start of that game against the Indianapolis Colts, where, let's face facts, did the Pittsburgh Steelers play really well in that game? No. They played really well in the second half, and that's why they won. And why do you think they played really well in the second half? It was because Ben Roethlisberger took over the play calling and really tried his best to throw the ball deep downfield. And the mistake we all made as fans was saying that going into these playoffs, we believe that coming off that big game against the Indianapolis Colts and a week off, we believe that Ben Roethlisberger would be good enough along with this defense to lead the Pittsburgh Steelers to at least one playoff win. And I do think the argument could be made that one of the main reasons why a lot of people were so confident that going into this game, the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to win would be because of the fact that over the past 10 to 15 years, everyone knows the Pittsburgh Steelers have had no trouble whatsoever beating the Cleveland Browns. And I think for a lot of Steeler fans and maybe a lot of analysts like myself, that could have been one of the many reasons why we were so confident in the Pittsburgh Steelers and their ability to win this game. Let's also not forget to mention that the Cleveland Browns didn't practice all week. And this is where really my number one problem comes in. Time and time again, Mike Tomlin does not have the Pittsburgh Steelers ready to play. And I think that this is another common pattern. I understand that Mike Tomlin is a coach that when you look at his resume, he's never had a losing season. I get it, and that's really impressive. That makes him a good coach. That just tells me that his teams never suck. And when you're a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, your expectations should be to never suck. So, okay, if Tomlin wants to go by that, that's fine. Here's my other issue, though. Over the past 3 seasons, the Pittsburgh Steelers have collapsed during December and late the season. Let me take you back to 2018. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a great start to the season. Antonio Brown was balling out. James Conner was still a guy that we thought could be a big-time running back after the very successful season he had. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, early in that 2018 season, were looking really good. They were sitting after week number 11 with a record of 7-2-1. They then lose their next 3 games and then they lose 4 to their last 6 and end up missing the playoffs. That cannot happen, but it happened once. That's fine. You then go to 2019. I understand Ben Roethlisberger was hurt, and overall, it was a pretty solid job by Mike Tomlin. But are people forgetting what happened the last 3 games of the season last year? The Pittsburgh Steelers, albeit with Doug Hodges and Mason Rudolph, started off their season 8-5. They had 3 games at home against the Bills, at the Jets, and at the Ravens, where if they could have won any one of those 3 games, they would have found themselves in the playoffs last year. And what happened? They went 0-3, lost all 3 games. And then fast forward to this year. There were a lot of people going into this season that were not particularly high on the Pittsburgh Steelers because they weren't necessarily sure that Big Ben Roethlisberger would be able to come back and lead the Pittsburgh Steelers to the division title. And after starting off 11-0 after week 12, I think there were a lot of people saying, oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though their record does say that they're 11-0, it's not a legitimate 11-0 because look at everyone they've faced. And I got that, but at the same time, once again, losing to Washington at home. I understand Washington won the NFC East, but if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and if you're a franchise that is really expecting by all costs to win a Super Bowl, that's a game you got to have. Getting blown out by Buffalo in the second half, that was a brutal performance. How about losing to the Bengals on the road on Monday Night Football? That's a brutal performance. And the Colt game, I understand they won 28-24 and Big Ben Roethlisberger looked really good in the second half, but I mean, it's one half. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and you're out here saying that Big Ben Roethlisberger deserves another chance due to the fact that in that Indianapolis Colt game he showed us he had the ability to throw the ball deep, then okay, that's fine. But my question is, why didn't he do that against the Cleveland Browns? Why couldn't he able to do that against the Cincinnati Bengals? And when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think that if I am Kevin Colbert, I would sit Ben Roethlisberger down and say, look, it's your choice. You're either going to be released or you're either going to retire. Whatever you want it to say on the press release, that's fine with us because I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they're bringing Ben Roethlisberger back, at the best, if everything works out, in the best case scenario, I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers would go 10-6 next year and at most win 1 playoff game, which is really, if you think about it, what they've been doing over the last couple of years. And for a franchise with this amount of star players on defense, with this head coach who has won a Super Bowl, with this franchise quarterback who has won a Super Bowl, and you consider the amount of money he's made over his career, and really 2 Super Bowls, I should say, I think Ben Roethlisberger, this was it. This was his time to show everyone that he had something left in the tank, and unfortunately, he was not able to get the job done. So if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, here is my vision going into next season. I'm making sure Big Ben Roethlisberger is gone. He's had a great career, but it's time. The Pittsburgh Steelers have to realize that as great of a career as Ben Roethlisberger has had, they are not able to win a Super Bowl with him anymore as their starting quarterback. And here's what I would do with Mike Tomlin. First off, I would say, look, Keith Butler, gone. Randy Fichtner, gone. Because you could say that Ben Roethlisberger, with a new offensive coordinator, could be better because, let's face facts, we watched the Pittsburgh Steelers play this year. Randy Fichtner was not an ideal play caller at all. But here's my problem with that. If you want to throw all the blame on Randy Fichtner, right? It's kind of fool me once, shame on you. But fool me twice, shame on me. And we saw everything that went down with Ben Roethlisberger and Todd Haley. We've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers bring in an offensive coordinator who likes to design a creative offense with screen passes and men in motion and stuff like that. And Ben Roethlisberger and him had a conflict about personality. Those 2 guys didn't gel well together. And then Randy Fichtner, he's obviously Big Ben's guy, the former offensive line coach of this Pittsburgh Steelers team. And even if they get along great, let's face facts, his play calling was horrible. And is really one of the main reasons why not only the Pittsburgh Steelers lost to the Cleveland Browns, but really one of the main reasons why this Pittsburgh Steelers season all in out was an abject disaster, because they didn't know how to execute on short yardage, and they didn't know how to call plays. And let me throw some blame over to Mike Tomlin here. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm telling Mike Tomlin next season, look, you have 1 year left on your deal. You have to show us something. As an NFL franchise, And for you as an NFL coach, we ask all the time of either players or coaches to just play on their last deal of their contract and give 100% effort at all time. You know why? Because nothing is guaranteed. And I look at the coaching job that Mike Tomlin has done really over the past 10 years, but I guess I'll limit it a little bit. Let's go over the last 4 years. I believe that to start a football game, a lot of that responsibility and blame, if your team does not start off well, goes on the head coach, because those plays are scripted. Your head coach had a full week to come up with a game plan on how to attack the other team and how to get your team in a position to win, at least to start the game, because those plays usually, once again, are scripted. And the last two playoff games, let alone home playoff games, that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had. You remember that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars a couple years ago when the Pittsburgh Steelers let Blake Bortles and company go into Heinz Field and run all over them? You know what the final the score to start off that game was? Anyone want to take any guesses? Yeah, it was 21 to nothing Jaguars. 21 to nothing in this game against the Cleveland Browns. How did the Steelers start off? You turn around, boom, it's 17 to nothing in the first quarter. And it's very hard to win playoff games, even if you're at home, when you're down by that many points. And here's the other thing I wanted to say about this whole situation. Mike Tomlin, throughout his Steeler career, has been a guy that always says, I have so much confidence in my guys, and I believe that my best guys going up against your best guys, that my best guys are going to have the advantage. Where was that mindset on 4th and 2 from the 50? Or, excuse me, 4th and 1. You guys all know the play I'm talking about. The Pittsburgh Steelers start the second half with a 13-0 run. And for the first time all night, all of the Cleveland Brown fans are just starting to get a tad bit nervous. Wow, are the Steelers actually going to come back? The Cleveland Browns, before Sunday night, the last playoff game they played was at Heinz Field in 2002, and they blew a big fourth quarter lead. I'm telling you, when the Steelers scored that touchdown to go down by 13, there were plenty of Cleveland Brown fans that were getting nervous. And then at that point, the Steelers really had all the momentum. And that all of that momentum went away when Mike Tomlin decided to punt the ball on 4th and 1, because next thing you know, Baker Mayfield hits Nick Chubb, and the Cleveland Browns offense goes to work, and they end up winning the game, and it really was never close from there. I do believe if the Pittsburgh Steelers go for it on that 4th and 1 and get it, obviously there's no guarantee they would get it, but if they would have gotten it, then I think there's a really good chance they win that football game. And it doesn't even matter ultimately, because punting was not the right decision. Tomlin punts on 4th and 1. The Browns get it to midfield, and then Baker hits Nick Chubb to the house for the touchdown, which ultimately ended up sealing the game. And I'm telling you guys, in the playoffs, I think you saw it a lot this weekend. Coward play calling cost the Titans in their game against the Ravens. Mike Vrabel gives it to Derrick Henry on 1st and 10. He gains 8, and then he never sees a carry the next 2 downs, and they punt, and the Ravens only got a field goal. The Titans had a chance to tie it at least, but that play call, I think, cost the Tennessee Titans. You look at the Steelers, if they score and make it a 6-point game, Cleveland all of a sudden, after being up 28 to nothing, is really starting to sweat it out. And I just think Mike Tomlin had a horrible game plan. And let's not forget, Cleveland's head coach, they didn't even practice. Mike Tomlin got outcoached by a man cave. Cleveland didn't even have a coach. That tells me all I need to know. If I'm the Steelers, I'm bringing back Mike Tomlin next year for the last year of his contract, but I'm saying this. Show me something. Show me something creative. Ben Roethlisberger is not going to be back. If you're this good of a head coach, bro, no matter who the coordinator is, hire a young coordinator that is willing to be creative, that is willing to be a little different, and let's see how he would do with the Mason Rudolph. And if he sucks, then guess what? The Steelers have a number 1 pick next year, because I just can't take it anymore with Mike Tomlin and these just dumb play calls around Randy Fichtner. Something needs to change with this Pittsburgh Steelers organization, because that loss Sunday night against the Browns was unacceptable.